Good morning! Some of you have asked to hear stories about my time in Ukraine, so I'm going to start a little short series called God Stories from Ukraine. Okay, the first story I want to tell you about has to do with my travel to Ukraine. I almost didn't get to Ukraine in the first place. I mean, the number of roadblocks I had was outstanding. From different COVID regulations at different countries to losing my luggage and everything in between. It was a pill to get there. So let me tell you what happened and how God provided for me. So I almost didn't get to leave the country in the first place. It was so hard for me at every single airport, but I finally caught a connecting flight to Amsterdam, and I was going to go from Amsterdam to Poland, and then from Poland I was going to ride an overnight bus into Ukraine. So I catch my Amsterdam flight, and I end up having to move seats on the plane to switch with somebody so they could sit near their family. And I end up sitting with this nice older couple, and it turns out they're Christians, and the woman speaks perfect English. They live in Amsterdam, but they are going to visit family in Poland. And we start talking, and sometimes God just gives you those divine connections along the way. You might not realize it up front, but they were just good, godly people, and it was an easy flight, and we connected. And I work for an organization that has locations all over the world, and it turns out that they know of my organization and they know people that are in my organization. So it was just a really cool connection, and we swapped phone numbers at the end. And what's really cool is they ended up helping me figure out how to navigate the airport and transportation stuff, and they ended up giving me some Polish money right before we parted ways, which is so funny because I would have never thought to get Polish money, because I'm literally stopping in Poland to take a bus into Ukraine, and I'm thinking I have a credit card and debit card if need be, but I wasn't going to actually exchange money until I got into Ukraine. But that comes into play later because it turns out I actually need Polish money pretty quickly. So I get to the Polish airport, and I have like 2 hours to transfer to a bus station and catch an overnight bus going into Ukraine. And it turns out that my suitcases do not arrive. And I have been traveling for 24 hours at this point. I had been I had been fasting on the trip, because normally to prepare for some ministry thing, I take some time to fast, and it's just really convenient for me to fast when I travel. But all that to say, I'm very tired, I'm very hungry, I'm very weak, and my suitcases don't arrive, and I miss my bus to go into Ukraine. So I am stranded at this airport in Warsaw, Poland, and my phone's not working. You know, I'm now international, and not only is my phone not working properly, but it's the middle of the night back in America, so I'm like trying to get a hold of my airline and figure out things like, when is my luggage gonna come? I can't even reach the airline, and I'm just stuck here at the Poland airport, and barely anyone speaks a lick of English, and it's nighttime, and I'm like, God, what am I gonna do? I'm hungry, I'm tired, my phone's not working, my luggage is not here, and I have no idea when it's gonna be here, and I have less than 24 hours to get to Ukraine because we are immediately leaving on a trip, like right when I get to Ukraine. So I just sit down in the airport, and I'm tired. I'm like, God, I don't know what to do. What should I do? And I just felt like he dropped an idea into my spirit. I felt like he told me to call the lady that I had just met on the plane. The lady, her and her husband, that live in Amsterdam, but they're visiting some family in Poland. So I had her number, but my phone is not working. So I borrow someone else's phone and call her and explain the situation to her. And she said, I'm not in Warsaw anymore. They've left. They're going somewhere else in Poland. But I have family in Warsaw. Let me make some phone calls and get back to you. So a few minutes later, this is the hand of the Lord, because I would have never called her had I not felt prompted by God to do this. So she calls me a few minutes later, and she said, okay, I have a family member. He lives in Warsaw. He's on his way right now to pick you up from the airport, and he has a place you can stay for the night. So I know nothing about this guy, and normally this would be like something you wouldn't do. I don't even know the guy's name. I know nothing. But I knew it was God, and so I'm like, okay, yeah, let's go with it. So she gave me this guy's number, and it was an older gentleman. He speaks great English because he is a sociology professor at a university there in Warsaw. Anyways, I think I'm going to stay with him and his wife and kids, but when he picks me up, he actually tells me that his father, who passed away, has a fully furnished apartment in the city, and so I get to stay there. He's going to let me stay there free of charge for the night. So he picks me up, he takes me to a grocery store to get some food, and then takes me to this fully furnished apartment that's totally empty. No one's living there. And I get to sleep in a bed that night. Granted, I didn't sleep much because of jet lag. I was up at like 2 in the morning, and the sun rose at 2 in the morning. But anyways, in the morning, I touched base with him because my bags still haven't showed up. And he comes over to the apartment, and I don't speak Polish. I can't even communicate with the Polish airport because they don't speak good enough English to really help me deal with this. So God sent me a translator. I'm just so grateful for this man. I don't even remember his name now, but he was an angel from the Lord because he came over to the apartment that I was staying at, and he started making phone calls with me to the airport, and we were trying to track down my luggage. And because again, my phone is still not working this whole time. I realized afterwards I had to change some settings to get access to internet. I'm not a techie, but God sent me this man, and basically, we go to the airport. We don't even know if my bags have arrived yet because they're lost. Like, one airport says, oh no, we've sent them to Poland, but the Poland airport says we haven't received them. So they're just in the abyss. And this is like my entire suitcase for a month and a half. Anyways, we go to the airport, and I basically just demand that they search every bag possible because they have this pile of bags that are unaccounted for, and they're like, we don't know that we have your bag. I'm like, listen, Amsterdam says they sent the bag here, so you have it. And so the airport is just checking for the suitcases, and finally they find my suitcase, and I'm so happy. But then I have like literally 15 minutes to get across town to a bus station to catch a bus to get to Ukraine, because it's the only bus that I know of that will be going to Ukraine that day. And so we are rushing to the bus station, and I'm texting my intercessors like, pray, I don't know that I'm gonna make it in time. And what do you know? I didn't make it in time. But it turns out the bus station told me there was a different bus company that would have a bus that would be leaving in the next, I don't know, 2 hours. And so I was way early for that. So I got my ticket, but we had some time to kill. So this man who's been helping me and translating, also he helped me get my bus ticket because again, I couldn't communicate with the bus station. We had some time to kill, so he ends up taking me to a World War II memorial, and we're driving around and go for a walk, and we just had a good time together. You know how in the scriptures, Jesus says when you go to a new city, you look for a person of peace and you stay with that person when you're in that city. I just felt like God sent me a person of peace. Like, I could not have worked this out. Anyway, so he takes me, after the World War II memorial, he takes me back to the bus station, and I catch my bus, and I ended up needing Polish money the whole time to buy groceries, but also anytime you use the bathroom, you have to pay money, and you can't pay with a debit card. You actually have to have cash. So I had no idea I would need Polish money because I was only thinking about getting to Ukraine and getting money there. Anyways, God provided. I ended up getting to my team in Ukraine the same day that I would have gotten there. It was just later in the day. But instead of sleeping on a bus overnight, I got to sleep in a bed in an apartment, and I was more rested going into the country. So I just want to tell you, before you have a problem, God has the provision. God had the translator, God had the money, God had the place to stay, He had the transportation, and at the end of the day, I could have figured something out. Eventually, I could have found a hotel. I was so exhausted. You know, 24 hours of travel just does it to you. And God is just so good because He knew my bags were going to get lost. Like, He knew that. And so He had the provision ahead of time. And I also believe it was important for me to be in Poland because I got to explore the city and meet some people and pray for some people. And Poland is such a beautiful country. And I loved, in hindsight, I love that plans changed because God made provision and it ended up being a wonderful time. So Thank you for listening to that. If you like this video, I just ask you to hit like and subscribe and hit that notification bell, and I will be sharing some other of my favorite testimonies from Ukraine. Okay, talk to you guys soon.